Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you about Second Life. Second Life is a virtual world, virtual reality that's available on the internet and is probably one of the most popular venues right now for teaching in virtual reality. And there's probably over 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 educators out there right now. Just like the internet, we know it's going to teach well, we just don't know how. And so today we're going to go through some of the things that we do at UTB, University of Texas at Brownsville, so you can get some examples of how we use Second Life and get to know my avatar. And hopefully after this is over, you can give us a call and we would love to help you get on Second Life and use it more in your classrooms. Second Life. There's Alan. He's one of our main. He's our main builder at UTB. So, hi Alan. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Do I need to turn down?
No, I'll turn you off when I get bored with you.
Okay, well, you do that anyway.
To give you a little bit of background, the UT Systems, we had a young woman, and UT Systems is the University of Texas. All of their universities that are under the University of Texas system. They bought every university and every medical center at least 3 Second Life islands and gave us those islands for free and said this is your test year, and from that point on you have to work with your college and your university and they will pay for it accordingly. So we are, the first year was over last year, and then we had some money left over, so we continued on with the project. All the colleges had to pay for their own the second year, and now we're going into our 3rd year of this project. And I'm with the Center for Teaching and Learning, and we, when they first got the islands, they were turned over to our tech staff. And when I heard about them, I went to see what was on Second Life and what we were doing, and absolutely nothing had been happening. So our first project was Second Life, was how do we introduce this into the classroom? I see Second Life as, Second Life is to the internet as talkies were to silent films. And we laughed thinking that when talkies came on that people would actually say talkies will never catch on. But there were actually people that, you know, they're still waiting for talkies to catch on. So with Second Life, we needed to figure out how we were going to get this island up and running, how we were going to manage it, and how we were going to introduce it to faculty. My background is that I originally started in education in a natural history museum, and most of my work there was exhibit design, was education part of exhibit design and label design. And then I went and got my science degrees. My undergraduate degree was in art, and my master's in environmental science, and then my PhD work was in physics education. And so through all of this, when I started working for the University of Utah, they had a project where they got $300,000 to send genetic science equipment into the school systems in Utah. And this looked like, back then, that was many years ago, in '92, that looked like $300,000 was like $1 million today. It was a huge project. And I quickly calculated, I learned my math, the $300,000 would buy the genetic science equipment, but would not replace it, would not pay for transportation, and we couldn't get people out to train the teachers how to use it. So we went to the internet, and back then the internet was Gopher, and it was basically sending text messages back and forth to each other. And you could put a paper, you could put directions, and you could put something, and somebody could download it to their computer, and that was high tech at that time. And I was lucky enough to have Larry Schmarr, who was at the University of Illinois in Champaign, and he was a physicist with one of the first supercomputers. University of Utah also had a supercomputer at that time. And Larry was at dinner, and I told him we were going to do this Gopher site to get the directions and everything to the teachers. And he said, well, why don't you wait? Because my students are doing a thing called Mosaic. And that was the first internet browser that had a picture base to it. And so we were able to build that internet site. So when Mosaic opened, we opened up with our Genetic Science Teaching Center. That website still exists today. We did it with a bunch of volunteers. I had students. I had a high school kid that did most of the work for us. And so we built this site. Back then, we had $100,000 a year to play with, and we still had to buy genetic science equipment. That website right now costs $1 million a year, and gets funded by 5 or 6 different funders. In that that brief amount of history, the funny part about the story is Larry Schmarr is a physicist, and his students invented Mosaic, and I called him up about a year later, and I said, well, what are your students doing now? He said, Betsy, he said, I can't believe it, those guys quit. I said, what do you mean quit? He said, they quit the physics program. And I said, well, where did they go? Because I wanted to find out where they went. He said, they went someplace and they're starting this thing called Netscape. To Larry's eyes, these men will always be a failure because they did not finish their PhD program in physics. So, but what we found when I started taking over the Second Life Islands is almost the exact same things that happened with the internet is happening with Second Life. So instinctively, there are thousands of educators on Second Life right now that are positive that this is the way it's going to go, that education is going to go to this, is going to blend into a virtual reality. It's going to be used quite often. It will not only be used for distance courses, but it'll be used for blended courses on campus. It'll be used for correspondence. Same thing as the internet. The same conversation that I have with faculty today, I could take Second Life out of the conversation, insert internet, and it's the same conversation. The Western Governors University will never catch on. Nobody will ever get a degree online. No employers won't accept that. When the internet catches on, then I'll use it. So, but for the faculty that are not using it, we do recognize and we know that it's difficult with Second Life. It's just like the beginning internet, where when you did a web page, now you want a web page, there's a form, you just fill out this thing and you have a beautiful web page. You want to use resources, the resources are already developed. That didn't happen in 1993, and it's not happening on Second Life right now. So the first thing we did, we realized that faculty that do get on Second Life right now are going to be the early adopters. They're going to be the ones that like to build and like to do things and like to have a good time with it. But the ones that are going to be using it 10 years from now are going to be the ones that are going to want to get on there and have things already made for them. So what we do at UT Brownsville, we first started building the island. And we put up skyscrapers, we put up little places, we put up great big places. Yeah, they need to enjoy immersive environments. Alan will be commenting on this as we go along. So what we did was put up whatever we could to give faculty an idea of what is possible. What are the things that they could do with Second Life? Surprisingly, it's such a new environment. It's like the internet. People didn't know what the internet was going to do. If you look at predictions of what the internet was going to do years ago, it would not be what we see today of the internet happening. We see the internet not happening so much in classroom, but we see internet happening outside of the classroom more than inside. And when we first had the internet, we thought that all internet stuff would be inside. So what we did is Alan Passerine, who's Alan Formerin in real life, and he and I went to high school together. I was 2 when I graduated, right, Alan? And he has a master's.
Say
Say that again.
I said, whatever you say.
See, smart man. He owns a gun shop. He has a master's in fine art, and of course, what do? You go in the gun business. And so he's in Ohio right now, and he has a small gun shop that he operates out of there. And I got some really good gun stories from that too. So he got on there with me, and he also has a video background, so we started building the islands. And the first thing I'm going to show you is with the University of Texas, just like with the internet years ago, we had to worry about, we call it lag on Second Life. Back in the early days, it took for our first homepage for the Genetic Science Learning Center, it took 15 minutes to download the homepage because we were so proud of putting up artwork and putting up pictures and putting up everything. So we work on lag, and that's with what we learned with the internet. The other thing that we did is the background that I have in museums has probably been the most important tool that we've been using. As techs, for those of us who like tech things, we're not as visually aware as people are that want to use it. So as an example, the first websites were long lists of things where you click this and click that. And now when people get on the web, what they want to see is easy clickables. They want to see pictures. They don't want to see a lot of large text. They want to read something. Just in a museum exhibit, you have 10 seconds for a person to decide if they're going to read the exhibit or not. Same thing happens on the internet with web pages. Same thing happens on with this. The other thing we needed is how do you navigate? Navigating people on Second Life is very, very, very difficult, just as it was in the early internet when we started learning how to use navigation. So we work quite a bit on there. We do not allow any floating text on UTB unless there's some really pressing reason for floating text. Reading on Second Life is like the early internet. It's very difficult. It's fuzzy. It's actually for a student to get on and read on Second Life is an advanced skill because they have to know how to zoom in. They have to know how to make that thing bigger. They have to adjust. So we do as much as we can, like a museum, with objects. So let me show you over here. We're going to go on to the screen, and we're going to go over here. This is our orientation area that I was sitting in. And when we do orientation for students, there's no reading. First of all, kids don't like to read. Adults don't like to read. Nobody wants to read until they've committed themselves that that's something they want to read. So when we do our orientation, the orientation is playing. This box over here, if we can look at the screen, the green box that I'm showing here, if you click on that, you get objects to wear. So students know how to wear an object. So there's food in there, there's clothes in there, there's things that they can do. And the second box are objects to res. Cars, motorcycles, sailboats, whatever, so that they learn how to res. And they do that by the end of an orientation. This whole place is just filled with cars, motorcycles, clothes, headless avatars. But they learn. The other thing is, like, here's our profile park, and we want to teach the students how to use a camera to take a picture. So if you look at the screen, we put up a great big, just like a museum, we put up a great big camera and very touch camera body for note card. So they know that that's something to do with taking pictures. They touch the note card. They get the note card. That has the reading in it. They can also save that note card. It's easy to read. It's easy to file. They've got it forever. And then once they read the note card, usually what they do is we know that they just go over everything and they first try it. With the internet, people click first. If it doesn't do what's expected, they go back and then they read the instructions. So we have, this helps them with their profile. So this is our orientation. We orientate the students for the professors. And before we go too much further, let me get a little bit of background of you so I make sure that we get to a level that you're interested in. So if we can start right over here, and if you can tell me why you're here, what you teach, and your interest in Second Life.
I'm in the MIS department here, and I teach information systems courses, business courses, and I just wanted to see what you had to show here.
Okay, good. Yeah, we've got a lot of business courses that will be coming online next year.
Lindsay Hamlin, I'm the Director of Distance and Non-Credit Education, and I'm here just to see what you can offer us so that we can learn more about Second Life at your university.
I'm Michael Bramble. I'm with Lindsay.
My student worker.
Oh, what's your major?
Political science.
You're going to see a lot of Second Life with poli-sci.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Poli-sci, all these people are on Facebook. They found out this. They haven't found this yet, but they will. So you'll be ahead of the curve.
I'm just a computer science undergrad, been in Second Life for about 6 years, so I was kind of curious how education was going to be involved.
I'm Martha Barnes, and I'm the coordinator of experiential education over in career services. So I'm interested in knowing this from a student perspective, but I'm also interested in the possibilities in career services and orientations and information. So kind of both.
Yeah, you'll find a lot, career services, orientation. I'll be interjecting Second Life into our freshman introductory course.
Okay.
So, and then by the end of I'll do it for the first time in the fall. So we'll have our results and see how that works. We do know with non-majors courses that the difference between using Second Life in a non-major course and not is completely different. The students love this.
All right, Merrill Johnson, Academic Affairs, and I've been in Second Life since 2006. And everybody can recognize me because I have blonde hair. Second Life.
In Second Life.
Gray hair in real life, but blonde hair in Second Life.
Well, I have the blue hair.
Mary Clancy from biology. I'm just here because I'm curious.
Okay, good.
Lynette Silvestri, Education. I'm looking to see if I can use this in my courses.
Okay, education is going to be huge on this.
Great.
I'm Richard Speaker in Curriculum and Instruction, and I've been teaching in Second Life for 4 years.
My name is James Johnson, the manager of instructional technology, and I'm always amazed about the different levels of creativity in Second Life. So I just wanted to see exactly, the many uses of Second Life. So.
Good.
My name is Nam. I'm a student at IELD.
Okay, good. Yeah, hopefully they're going to get spell check on Second Life. So what we do is the faculty let us know when their class gets on, and then we plan the orientation for them. When faculty say they're going to be using Second Life, we give them the instructions to put on their syllabus so the students can read how to get on Second Life, where to go, where the tutorials are, all the directions for getting on are right there. And the other thing we do is we ask the professor why they want to use it. And technology doesn't answer all problems. Used incorrectly, technology can actually create more problems. So what we do is we find out what the problem is the professor wants to solve, how they want to use Second Life, and then we go from there. So we're going to start over on the southwest corner. And one of the ways that probably with distance, with other courses, is the social aspect of Second Life. So this area we built in here, and by the way, the other thing that we found is about 80% of this island is student built. Our students now do the building. In the beginning, Alan did most of the building. This area in here is for faculty that want to have discussions with students, that want to use the social aspect of it, small meetings. We have with students, faculty that use group work. The groups will meet there because there's a place for them to sit. They can play the piano. So you didn't know I could play, did you? Oh. So Second Life has an amazing quality for social aspect. One of the things we've learned, and we like to do a lot more study on, is that students are more likely to engage in conversation with other students and with faculty on Second Life than they will in a real life course. We always think that a real life course is much more social when it's not really. On Second Life, for some reason, the students are more apt to get into a conversation. They're more apt to discuss things. So this area in here was built with the idea that faculty can come in and use it for their students, for group work, to meet with their students. This area will probably turn more into an online course, where you have an online course, and on Wednesdays they can meet here. The course can get to know each other. The students can get to know each other. On online courses, it's hard for students often to, they'll converse, and they'll converse a lot, but when you get them here playing the piano and they've got blue hair, or they can make themselves a monkey or whatever, and their personality comes through, there's more conversation. We're trying really hard at UTB. We know that if a student, we have a better chance of retaining a student who's had interaction with a faculty person. So if we were trying to get more student interaction with faculty, and this is a good way to do it. The kids in our online geology course, it's an environmental science course, and it's a non-science majors course. And we know with non-science majors courses, they always have hostile students because they don't need to know science, because they're going to be a great playwright, they're going to be, you know, a politician, and they don't need to know science. So we find by having them get on here and get to know each other, number one, kids in core classes get to know each other better online than they would in a classroom. And they get to know a little bit about their personality, about how they develop their avatar. And then they also correspond more with the professor. So we've been very successful with that. We'll probably have that study written up. The other thing, way that we're looking at Second Life is simulations. With online courses as well as face-to-face courses, doing a role-playing or a simulation where students can apply their knowledge is it's very expensive to do in real life. It's very, very inexpensive to do in Second Life. So this area here was built, one of the activities we use is I'm a parole officer, and I'm going to go see my parolee. And it's an unexpected visit. So the professor can use this, a couple different ways we use this. One, you can make a Camtasia video where they get to a point where they have to make a decision and then questions show up and they answer the questions. The other way is the students can go online on their own or as a group, and then they actually have to write a parolee report, and the professor grades the parolee report according to what they see and what they do here. And then the third way is the professor can use it in the classroom. So if we can go over to the camera, to the screen, and here we are. And I'm a parole officer, and I'm looking around the neighborhood. This is the house where my parolee is. Now, can or should I go into that house? And that would be part of the parolee report. And they would have to take the knowledge that they've gained in the classroom to determine whether or not they can go in. So in this case, I'm going to venture forward. I'm in the parolee's house. There's either someone very passed out or somebody dead. There's evidence here. Can I touch that evidence? What do I do with it? So they would have to look at what do they do now? They've got somebody on the bed, maybe dead, maybe passed out. Do they call the police? Do they go over and touch the body? Do they pick up the pills to try and figure out what that person has been taking? All of those things they've learned in their classroom. And by what they do and what they write in that report allows the professor to understand if those students have actually processed that information. In a case like this, touching any of that evidence right now would put that person's fingerprints there. It would destroy being able to look at any time sequence to see what was being used, what was not being used. So there's a lot of options here. There's not a right way to do it, but the students would have to figure out the best way to do it. So we've got evidence hidden around there. So this is a good example of testing students for learned knowledge. Now we had 2 students, and Alan and I, it took us about a week working with the professor to put this up. The content was the hardest part. That's where we need the professors to really work with the tech, because I don't know anything about criminal justice. But by the time we worked with the professor and found out, well, what happens? Can I walk in that room? Well, yeah, I can. If somebody writes their parolee report said, I didn't have a warrant, I couldn't walk in, then that's wrong. They should know that they can visit at any time. They can visit their parolee at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock at 10 o'clock at night, whenever, and they have no right. Now, if they go in and they see a body, and they said in their parolee report they went over and shook the person to try and see what was wrong, they've done a couple things wrong. They've put themselves in a dangerous situation. They've put themselves in a position where the EMT people are going to have a harder time getting in there. They're not allowed to go into a situation that's dangerous. They're not allowed to go into a medical thing without an EMT crew there, and they can't touch the evidence unless somebody asks them to. We were talking about online courses in our EMT, Emergency Medical Technician technology. They're building a completely online course for EMT. It'll be the first online course EMT that actually has all of their labs online. So I'm an EMT, I'm at the beach, I'm looking at the scene, there's people out there drowning. What do? Can I start swimming? Can I get in a boat and jump and save that person? What do? And when they write out their EMT report, the same thing. We're going to find out they can't touch a body they can't touch a person in the water if they're in the water, because that person's more likely to have them drowned, will drown the EMT person. They would have to find something to throw in, or some life preserver, and give that to the person. They can't touch the person. So all of those things are applying what they've learned in their class. And they'll be able to take these as a test to determine whether or not they're qualified for their license. We had, to give you an idea of the quality of work that students can do, we had an art appreciation class. And we gave them, this was an art appreciation class, freshmen and sophomores. And we gave them an assignment that they had to take a photograph of a piece of artwork that they studied. And they had to make something in Second Life that represented that artwork. And as an example over here, the student took, and back to the screen over here, the student took this artwork right here. And that was a painting, an abstract painting. And to represent that painting, because the abstract figures, painting, represented music, represented dancing, motion, confusion. And they built these figures and made the clothes out of the texture of the painting. We had a student here who did a Parthenon. And for those of you who do Second Life, if you notice the details in the columns, we're keeping this up. There's over, I think, well over 500 objects in there, which is against our rules for keeping lag to a minimum. So to do this piece of artwork, we worked with the faculty member and we came up with the assignment. This one was easier for me to do because my undergraduate is in art. The science and art ones are easy for me to do because I have content knowledge. Where we need the faculty person is, what's the content? What do we need to do? And that's what takes so long. The students were given their instructions and their syllabus. And on Blackboard, they had instructions how to get on Second Life, along with videos on how to create an avatar. They were told where their art project instructions were. They were given one online orientation. They could contact me at any time they wanted to. And their instructions to build their project came in a note card. So here they had information they needed for it. And then these are the textures that they could use. And then they had to represent the work. This started out, the faculty person said that she was going to a conference and she needed someone to cover her course for her. And I said, oh, fine, we'll do a Second Life thing. And then we worked out the assignment. She went on her conference. We gave the students 1 week to do the assignments. The students had so much fun, they asked if they could continue the assignment. So most of them did 2 or 3 sculptures. And then we actually had an art show and invited people all over Second Life to come and see their artwork. And the veteran Second Lifers were very, very impressed because on any object you can find out when it was created and a little bit about the avatar. And when they clicked on the avatar's name, they found that some of those kids had been on there 1 or 2 days before they built their structure. Younger students are very, very familiar with this environment. If you have a chance, go to a public library and go to the computers and watch and see what the students are doing. And these young kids, they're, from 4, 5, 6, 12, they're all on virtual reality. They're dressing paper dolls, they're making guns, they're doing all these very simple virtual reality activities. So when we get them on Second Life with the students, they'll say, well, how do I build? And I say, right-click on the ground and click, and then say build. And then within seconds, they're building. They're off and running. A biology area that's a good simulation that we have. Well, it was my first project and I still haven't finished it, but luckily I found another professor at another college who's finishing it for me. So this is a representation of the Rio Grande Valley. Brownsville, where University of Texas at Brownsville is, to the west of us is Mexico, to the east of us is the Gulf of Mexico. So the nearest American city is 4.5 hours away. The nearest Mexican city is 2.5 hours away. But what we did with this is we recreated the landscape. This is the Gulf of Mexico. This is the Laguna Madre, which is the brackish water between, this is the Padre Islands that run all the way clear up to, well, actually they've been destroyed, but they would have run all the way up to New Orleans. And then this is the waterway that separates the Padre Islands from the mainland United States. We have, in Brownsville, we have 2 species of pelican. And their job is, there's an oil spill out on the Gulf. And they're to learn about the 2 species of pelicans that we have and design a plan to protect the 2 species. And by reading, again, we don't have any big reading, they always have to click for reading. The other thing with the Second Life, we have a standard way of doing things. And by having some islands you get on, and somebody's built that you say open to get this, or somebody said you do this to do that. But we have a standard way. All the builders have to build it in a standard way. So anybody, if this works this way on the island, it'll work that way on the other side of the island. So they get their note card, how the brown pelicans make a living, and they can go over, investigate the waterways, which way the water is running, what is protecting water, and the lifestyle of the birds. And what they find out is the brown pelican is a saltwater bird and the white pelican is a freshwater bird. So if they've understood everything and they've looked this over, they would find out that the white pelican will not be endangered with having a oil spill because they're freshwater birds. The brown pelican will be the ones that they'll have to protect. This is another one. Science Circle students, when we work with a professor about what they want for their assignment, then we require that the students sign up for different groups. So if they're education majors, they sign up for ISTE, they sign up for EdTech community. If they're biology majors, where there's a science circle, there's other things, so that they, after class is over, their lessons don't have to stop. They can stay on Second Life, and they already have a social group that's interested in the same academic area as they are. So one of our fun areas, this is, again, most of the, 80% of the island now is student built. This was built by a history major. She was our first student worker. And it's a racetrack, and somebody took all the cars, are at the other side. But we have these really cute cars that they can get on. She builds, every time we have a new group on, she'll redesign the racetrack according to what the students need. Here we are. And then according to the contest, they may have to be able to go through here. It took her, this was actually a very difficult project because she had to use large pieces. It took her about a month to do it, and she just goes crazy. She just loves to do it. Whatever, we meet with the student workers once a week and have assignments, and then everybody goes and does their stuff. As we find new students that are interested, then we put them in our UTB administrators, and the good students get building privileges. It looks like we're headed in a direction where our goal is like 99% student built, and that we start boxing things up. So as an example, we'll be able to box this up if it gets to be an old activity, and a student can come and build something new, and then we can unbox it when we need it or box it up. The same thing with the simulations. We can box those up. So maybe they're going to be using the parolee simulation for one semester, but they want to use the police stop simulation for the next. So we can box it up and take them in and out so we can use our islands. We're getting pretty full. We also have our students will, when we film videos on here, our students will build avatars. But I think we've got a paper, Alan and I have a paper already out about designing, how to design on Second Life. And we're coming out with a paper by the end of August on how to use museum exhibits, and then another one on how to use faculty. And probably the most important thing with using faculty is to find out what the faculty person needs to enhance their course. And the second important thing is that we help the faculty person with all that work. So we organize the activity for them. We find student builders to build the activity. We give them the information that goes on the syllabus, and then we do the orientation. And it's getting to the point now where our students have done the orientation that Alan or I don't even have to show up to do the orientation anymore. The students are more than happy to do the orientation for us. And then the other important thing is the goals and objectives of the course. If this is an activity that's just for fun, it's not going to last because it's not going to help with the goals and objectives of the course. It's not going to be justifiable. SACs will cream you because it's, you know, it's bells and whistles. It's not meaningful. So we find out what the goals and objectives are, and then we also look at what the skills students need. In the art classes, there isn't a student walking out of an art school today that's going to get a full-time job drawing pretty pictures. 90% of them are going to go out and they're going to have to be able to be computer literate. And they're going to have to be able to be computer literate in virtually. They're going to have to be able to design. And for designing this stuff, the students have to learn Photoshop, or we don't use Photoshop, we download GIMP for free. That way the students can keep it on their computer. So all of these skills that the students need to have. And our next project is with communication, because students are going to have to be able to communicate on here. Now, as a political science major, you can see there's a lot of cool stuff that can be done with this. And keep in mind that right now the software is primitive. We're essentially back to what the early internet was, where things res slowly, where you get choppy movements, you can only get so many people on. The first time, so we had an activity on the Genetics Science Teaching Center. We got 100 people that hit the site at one time and crashed all of our computers. And that's what's happening on Second Life. And I laugh about that today. I tell people, you know, sometimes to get on the internet, we would have dial-up connections, like with telephones that you dialed. And then what you would do is you would set your computer to dial. If it got a busy signal, hang up, dial again. And people had literally had that dial hang up thing going for hours before they could get an internet connection. So the challenges we're having is with students. Students have all different kinds of computers. I mean, they have computers that are 100 years old. They have little computers that are pink and they're about this big. So what we're looking at is, at UTB, what I'm working and a bunch of other faculty are working for is students need to get a computer that's specific for their major. Education majors. And education majors should not, from day one to the day they graduate, should have a computer on there because that's how kids are being taught. So they need to have all of those skills. The other thing we're doing is looking at clouds so that they can go through, like with GIMP, instead of them having to have a computer that's big enough to run GIMP, that they can just get on a cloud and run it from their little tiny computer. So I've been talking a whole lot. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Building the camera from the other, I guess, area. How do you go about building, like, say, a component like that?
Ah, okay. So we have videos, and I'll give you the address for the videos and how to build. All the students learn how to build in their first orientation. So I want to build something. You have to have a sandbox. Eventually our island will probably be all sandbox. Sandbox means that anybody can build any place. And what we're finding is we're getting so many students on their building that the whole thing may turn on into a sandbox. So I just build. I can choose any shape I want. I can move it around. I can stretch it.
It's pretty much from scratch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right now. And then what I think the direction it's going to go, well, you can also, some of the stuff we bought, we just got lazy and we just bought it. But yeah, and some of it's available free.
Yeah, so I was trying to see, do you start from scratch, or is that something?
Yeah, we try to build as much as we can by ourselves because we will be going into Reaction Grid or one of the open sims, and we want to take what we can with us. And then the other reason, sometimes we find out why something's free. It can have so many, you blend objects, and that's how you make what you want. And they blended so many objects that one object can lag an entire island. So the kids start building right away. And the sooner you get them building, the more they like it. And your students build, don't they?
Yeah, I make them do some image manipulation, not really build from scratch. But show them a texture.
Oh, okay.
Load a texture on something.
Yeah, so let's say, oh, let's put me on there. I'm going to make it better. You can make them any shape that you want. So there I am upside down. So you can put any kind of texture you want. What we do is we make our own textures. So let's say we want to do a stone house. Then we'll go out and get a picture of a stone off the internet and then use that as our texture. And there's Alan making the camera. So you can manipulate the shapes any way you want to.
I have a question. You said you were going to something which is open, standard. Now, that's my problem with Second Life. It's proprietary. And that's going to be a challenge. I mean, we're always stuck with this if we go a ton of work on building something in Second Life.
Yeah. Unlike the internet came a little bit more organized than Second Life, than the virtual reality. And it's unfortunate. Second Life has kind of taken the name of virtual reality, and I try and get it out of my vocabulary, and I don't always do it. But you can get an open sim, and Second Life is just a commercial company that copied other people's open source codes, and they built this to their own. And now you pay to do it. But you can go to another open sim. You can have your open sim and you can manage it in your tech department, or you can have like Reaction Grid or another company do it, and you have more control over it. And Second Life is not, they're continuing to go towards the recreation market. I think they're silly for, they have no marketing people. And not the foresight to realize that the education market would be far more lucrative. But going to open SIMs, we have a problem with lag. And that's a problem because Second Life has got stuff that we don't need in the education market that's causing lag when we could, with a little bit more technology on our own, we could do it.
That's the other thing, because Second Life was kind of big in the business world where every company hopped onto it and then they gave up and went away. And it's languished now for 6-7 years at roughly the same level. And with any technology in the internet, if it stayed the same level for 6 years, it's not going to go anywhere. There was active words before it that also went away.
Yeah, well, actually, we were talking about that. And the internet did have, you had this point where the internet came on, so Mosaic, then Netscape. There was so much time to get teachers trained. So with our project, the original project we did, we spent most of our time training teachers. And then we found that we needed to not just train teachers in Utah, because the minute we came on the web, we were international. So we were getting messages from people all over the United States. Can you translate this? You know, how do you, we were making gel boxes for electrophoresis, which they don't even use anymore. Antiquated equipment, but you know, we had those directions and they wanted them in different languages and everything. So we actually went national and started going to professional conferences for teachers. And we ran courses called Internet for Non-Nerds. And probably if I had that same kind of money base, I would go to all professional conferences and do Second Life for Non-Nerds and take the technical language out of it, like we do with the students, and get them working on it. But, and that's how you get your energy. But yeah, Second Life has taken, slowed down quite a bit. But the education market, and hopefully we'll be coming out with a paper, we're going to be studying with the UT systems. They gave us 1 year. And everybody who's in the grant business knows it takes 3 years to get results out of a project. And the first year, we had to figure out what it was. And the second year, we had to figure out how to get faculty on there. And now this year, we've got faculty coming on so quickly, we're having a hard time keeping up with them. So our next thing is making sure that the faculty, working more closely with faculty to make it a success, and also continue to use that international perspective for actually recruiting more faculty. Yes?
Do you have any sense that the students continue using Second Life once the classroom needs of it are done, once the semester's over?
Yeah, that's a frustrating thing because we have me and a couple of other faculty. We've got so many studies going on this. But what happens is the same thing with the internet. So a student gets on there and they're really excited. It's open 24/7. They've taken the course with 35 students, and maybe 5 of them have decided to come back. Well, one comes on Saturday at 9 o'clock, another one comes Sunday at 3 o'clock, another one comes on, and there's nobody else there to play with. Or there isn't any group. So that's why anytime a student takes a class with us, then we put them in a group. So hopefully we can start getting energy. So as an example, we have UTB artist, UT Ed Psych, educational technology, faculty, physicists, criminal justice. We have UTB administrators. So we find out, we try and get them on a group. And eventually we're going to start getting an energy. All we need are 2 or 3 kids on there to come together. And then you start building it. Now our student workers, they're on there constantly. And We got a little bit of grant money. We pay them $600 a semester, and they put in countless hours. It is interesting, like the early internet, it's easy to get volunteers. I know a lot of people say, oh, you know, it's going to cost so much money, it's going to cost so much money. But essentially nobody on UTB Islands has a full-time job of taking care of UTB. Everybody has somehow been able to figure it into their. Alan works for us, and he has a business. That's Greg, who's he had his students, they're finishing up the Pelican simulation for us. So yeah, there's some things, getting that student energy, getting those clubs going, that's what's going to make a difference. And with the internet, we had the same thing. We had individuals come on, they would do something, they would have a good time, but they wanted someone to play with.
Have you tried getting them interested in general Second Life interest groups? Because there are lots of them, and that's what sustained me for a long time.
Yeah, they're all required.
Participating in groups. I was one, the Oxford University philosophy group, and a couple others that sort of kept my interest for a long time.
Yeah, we now make them, like the educators, all of the students, and we just started this year, we had to figure out if you're an education person and we put you on a group, then you have to join EdTech community and you have to join ISTE, Educational Technology. And so we're starting to find those interest groups because it's like the internet, it's going to be an international group, it's not going to be a local group.
Lots of things, and I get, every time I log on, there's some message from someone about something they're doing on their island.
Yeah, we have, it's a fun group, it's hysterical.
We have time for one more question. Or a comment.
As an educator, can you see where this would come in?
I'm trying to visualize it.
Well, we'll have...
Right now I can't quite see it.
Yeah, if you leave your card, then what we can do is our EdTech faculty will have you come into one of their classes and see what they do with it. On Monday, we have our NOIS scholars, which are, they get National Science Foundation money to get a 4-year science degree, and then we pay for them to take an alternative certification. And they're going to be doing their projects on Monday and showing us what they've come up with.
Thank you so much for showing us all this, especially the criminal justice demonstration. That's very interesting. I know that Dr. Gazer's been doing a lot of work with his virtual biology class, buddies.
Yeah, I think the simulations is going to be the thing that's really going to turn it over for education.
So let's give her a round of applause. If anyone wants to meet with her later this afternoon, we can arrange that, so just let me know. I can get you in touch with her. But also, I'll take any cards if you want to have me pass them. Thanks. Did he finish building the camera back there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he basically, Al, in the background, built the